While the world knows Sony as the tech titan behind the PlayStation and high-end televisions, the company's actual financial backbone is a massive life insurance empire that quietly thrives on death benefits and premium collections in Japan. For decades, this highly profitable financial division has secretly subsidized Sony's struggling electronics arms, turning a gadget manufacturer into a disguised financial fortress. When you think of Sony, your mind immediately conjures images of the legendary Walkman, sleek noise-canceling headphones, or the cutting-edge PlayStation 5 consoles dominating living rooms worldwide. You picture high-tech laboratories in Tokyo, brilliant engineers pushing the boundaries of silicon, and massive Hollywood film sets under the Sony Pictures banner. It is a brilliant, glittering facade of modern entertainment. But behind this multi-billion-dollar curtain of consumer tech lies a startling corporate reality that the company rarely highlights on its international stages. The glittering gadgets that built Sony's global reputation have spent massive portions of the last 30 years burning through cash, suffering catastrophic losses, and pushing the legendary brand to the absolute brink of extinction. So, how did Sony survive? The answer lies not in their sleek microchips, but in a highly calculated, incredibly lucrative financial machinery that relies on the life expectancy, health, and eventual deaths of millions of Japanese citizens. To understand how a consumer tech pioneer became a shadow insurance giant, we must first look at the devastating collapse of their core business at the turn of the 21st century. In the 1980s and 1990s, Sony was untouchable. They had conquered the globe with the Trinitron television and the portable Walkman, transforming how humanity consumed media. But as the digital age dawned, the company fell victim to classic corporate hubris. They completely missed the MP3 revolution, allowing Apple to steal their crown with the iPod. They lost their dominance in flat-panel televisions to agile South Korean rivals like Samsung and LG, who could manufacture screens at a fraction of the cost. Year after year, Sony's television division bled red ink, accumulating over $8 billion in losses over a single decade. Even the legendary PlayStation brand, while wildly popular, was incredibly expensive to develop. The launch of the PlayStation 3 in 2006 was a financial disaster, with Sony losing hundreds of dollars on every single console sold just to compete with Microsoft's Xbox 360. To the outside observer, Sony was a dying giant, a slow-motion train wreck mirroring the tragic fall of Kodak or Nokia. The global press was preparing Sony's obituary, predicting a humiliating bankruptcy or a hostile breakup. Yet, the company never went under. Its stock price fluctuated, but the doors remained open, the research and development labs kept humming, and the PlayStation division kept receiving multi-billion-dollar lifelines. This was not due to some miraculous bailout from the Japanese government, nor was it a sudden surge in camera sensor sales. It was because, deep within Sony's corporate structure, a quiet financial engine was generating torrents of pure, uninterrupted cash. This bizarre duality dates back to a stroke of pure corporate genius in the late 1970s. Sony's legendary co-founder, Akio Morita, was a visionary who understood that the electronics business was highly cyclical, volatile, and brutally competitive. He realized that relying solely on consumer gadgets was a dangerous, long-term gamble. In 1979, Morita met with Donald McNaughton, the chairman of the American insurance giant Prudential. Together, they forged an unlikely alliance, establishing a joint venture known as Sony Prudential Life Insurance. For Sony, this was a radical departure from their identity. To the public, it seemed like an absurd, disjointed distraction. Why would a company that makes cutting-edge radios sell life insurance? But Morita saw the underlying math. Life insurance is the ultimate business model. Customers pay regular, predictable premiums for decades, while the company only pays out under strictly defined, long-term circumstances. It represents an immense, continuous inflow of capital that can be invested to generate steady, guaranteed returns. When the joint venture eventually became a wholly owned subsidiary called Sony Life, it began to grow at an explosive rate. This growth was driven by a revolutionary sales strategy that Sony imported from the United States, the Life Planner system. Instead of hiring traditional part-time sales agents, Sony recruited highly educated, professional university graduates, often former engineers or corporate executives, who could analyze a family's financial future with mathematical precision. These life planners didn't just sell policies. They built deep, trusted relationships with Japan's rising middle class. Japan proved to be the absolute perfect laboratory for Sony's insurance ambitions. The country boasts one of the highest savings rates in the developed world, coupled with an aging population that is incredibly risk-averse and deeply concerned about financial security. Sony Life offered them a trusted, modern brand name attached to a rock-solid financial promise. By the time Sony's electronics business began its long, painful decline in the early 2000s, Sony Life had quietly amassed millions of policyholders and hundreds of billions of dollars in assets. During the darkest years of Sony's corporate history, between 2000 and 2012, the financial reality of the conglomerate was mind-boggling. While the electronics division was losing billions of dollars trying to sell Bravia TVs and compete with smartphones, Sony's financial services division was generating astronomical profits. In several fiscal years, the insurance and banking arm accounted for a staggering 60 to 70% of Sony's entire corporate operating profit. Literally, the premiums paid by ordinary Japanese citizens planning for their retirement or preparing for their eventual demise were directly keeping the lights on in Sony's PlayStation and television laboratories. Without the massive cash reserves and steady profits of Sony Life, the PlayStation division would have likely been sold off, the mobile phone division would have folded, and the Sony we know today would have ceased to exist. It was a masterclass in corporate camouflage. The fun, exciting brand of gaming and movies was entirely funded by the sober, predictable world of death benefits and long-term care insurance. This internal dynamic created a fascinating, tense culture clash deep within Sony's Tokyo headquarters. On one side stood the proud hardware engineers, who viewed themselves as the true heirs to Sony's legacy of innovation and creative genius. On the other side stood the conservative, highly analytical financial executives, who knew that they were the ones actually paying the engineers' salaries. For years, activist investors, most notably the American billionaire Daniel Loeb of Third Point, begged Sony to spin off its financial division. Loeb argued that Sony's complex corporate structure created a conglomerate discount, hiding the true value of the highly profitable insurance business and confusing global investors who couldn't understand why a tech stock was heavily exposed to the Japanese insurance market. For a long time, Sony resisted these demands, knowing that Sony Life was their ultimate safety net. However, as Sony's core electronics and entertainment businesses underwent a massive, highly successful turnaround in the late 2010s, driven by the dominance of the PlayStation 4, a highly lucrative music publishing business, and a near monopoly on smartphone camera sensors, the company finally felt secure enough to adjust its strategy. In 2020, Sony launched a massive project to take full control of its financial unit, and more recently, announced plans to partially spin off Sony Financial Group while retaining a minority stake. This strategic pivot marks a new era where Sony's electronics and entertainment segments are finally strong enough to stand on their own feet, no longer needing to rely so heavily on the life insurance division to survive. Ultimately, the story of Sony's secret insurance empire shatters the romantic myth of the tech industry. We like to believe that tech giants survive purely on the strength of their innovation, the genius of their designs, and the passion of their creators. But the harsh reality of global business is that even the most brilliant innovators need a boring, incredibly stable safety net to catch them when they fall. Sony did not conquer the world because they made the best televisions or the fastest gaming consoles. They conquered the world because they had the strategic foresight to build a parallel empire that turned the inevitability of human mortality into a financial fortress. They transformed a boring, traditional industry into a multi-billion-dollar shield that protected their wildest, most expensive dreams from the cold reality of market forces. It is a profound lesson in corporate survival that modern tech startups, burning through venture capital with no safety net in sight, would do well to study. If this hidden corporate strategy shocked you, you must watch our video about how a secret $800 loophole built a $100 billion empire, revealing the bizarre, untold tricks that global giants use to dominate the world without you ever realizing it.